Hey, just wanted to let everybody know that I released this through Don Sikorsky back in, I think it was 2020, and anybody who wants to use this audio, feel free to use it. Just give me an attribution. Let's keep the truth. We're about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
A lot of part of the history need to be shown, need to be said, because it can help people in the future,
Well, the truth is actually the best story that's ever been told.
Oh, always. Yeah, always, definitely. That's why I'm saying, that's why it's so important to get these things out, and you're the right person to do it, because the truth doesn't just stop with one person.
No.
The truth put the law down, the facts down, that it don't keep happening again.
So we got a lot to cover up.
So guys,
what's going on?
Greg Kading is out. His lawyer won't let him do it, so
we've been waiting around for Kading all day, and
yeah, and now
he's not
he's a
coming.
no-show.
Really, I wanted to talk to him because there's so much to ask him.
Yeah.
Puffy was going up the stairs, and he said, I don't care if Tupac died, I don't care if Biggie gotta die, and I don't care if Suge gotta go to prison for the rest of his life.
We got a confession letter on how everything went down and who's responsible.
Now, getting back to Russell was following in the footsteps of his dad, and he was able to work through the LAPD and have all the things that had to be done within the LAPD. He certainly knew the streets very well, and circumstances in his case were far more tragic because he was killed in the line of duty.
If that's the case, did Tupac life mean anything? Because they never saw that case. Sometimes if you saw the first case, you might have saw the second case. But that never happened, correct?
Yep.
But he did testify reluctantly. The Death Row Records security chief Reggie Wright Jr. once told him, quote, "We're going to get those mothers who downed Pac."
Through interviews of former police officers that worked in the death row organization, Mack and Gaines were identified as confidants of Suge Knight, the owner of Death Row Records. They were present during private death row parties, and that's where first time that we were able to really make the connection between those two.
Ice and I, we've heard consistently, Suge, that you're the person behind the hit on Biggie.
Well, they looked at y'all and told y'all a fat-ass lie. Perez and them was all involved. They were trying to kill me too, but see, because Perez and Reg was good friends, and Perez and Sarita and Reg is great friends, and so all those three together was trying to plot.
A reportedly missing photograph and former police chief Bernard Park's daughter came up during testimony today in the wrongful death lawsuit filed against the city by murdered rap star Biggie Smalls' mother.
That, to me, was probably another motive for Chief Parks to want to squash a lot of the information. There was an effort to keep a lot of the information away from the public.
This declaration from a jailhouse informant named Kenny Boagni links crooked LAPD officers David Mack and Rafael Perez to the murder of rap star Biggie Smalls.
Okay. Right? You see, Suge was willing to say, I didn't know those two cops, but maybe Reggie knew them.
Never met those dudes. They never worked for me. They knew Reggie right. They didn't know me.
He always would say, those are Reggie people.
And Reggie was fast to say, I didn't know them either.
I was just interested in why he would point the finger at Suge so quick. He wouldn't say it to you, but he definitely pointed it. We call that dry snitching.
That Perez told how he worked security for Death Row Records the night Biggie Smalls was assassinated, and how he and Mack used cell phones to set up the hit. Boagni now says he was instructed by an LAPD detective to share his story with no one else investigating Biggie's murder. Judge Florence Marie Cooper says LAPD may be involved in what she calls deliberate and intentional concealment of information. Jailhouse informant Kenny Boagni ties former LAPD officers David Mack and Rafael Perez to the murder of rap star Biggie Smalls. LAPD has withheld reams of other evidence as well, including at least 2 other jailhouse statements implicating dirty cops Mack and Perez in Biggie's murder. 1,000 pages of information were withheld describing Mack and Perez's involvement in Biggie's murder. 3 different jailhouse informants who offered to wear a wire were all turned down by LAPD. A wire, say informants, that could have caught jailed officer Perez boasting about his involvement with Death Row Records and the Biggie Smalls murder. Judge Florence Marie Cooper lists all the new information she says links former crooked LAPD officers David Mack and Rafael Perez to the murder of Biggie Smalls. The sheer volume of the information, says the judge, belies any LAPD argument that it comes from just another jailhouse informant.
Murder is pretty simple. The first person you go after is the spouse.
Perez and them was all involved. They were trying to kill me too, but see, because Perez and Reg was good friends, and Perez and Sharita and Reg is great friends, and so all those 3 together was trying to plot. Those guys, if you go back and watch the film, they was already stalking Pac, watching him. So that just tipped the iceberg when something happened. But there was a plan already to do something to him. Orlando wasn't even the shooter, you know? He was actually a good kid too, you know? I'm quite sure if they saw the first one, they would saw the second one, because it's the same circle of people.
You got a lot to cover up, y'all.
Freudian slip.
You got a lot to cover up.
Okay, everybody. Tonight, I kind of want to go through the events, and I'm going to start with a little bit of an affidavit that Russell Poole had done, and he had sent to me. So I'm going to show you that, but I'm also going to read it to you. Attorney Thaddeus Culpepper telephonic statement. Saturday, July 18th, 2015 at 14:06 hours. Statement taken by Russell Poole. And let me read it to you. Attorney Culpepper stated he is co-counsel for his client, Marion Suge Knight. Attorney Culpepper works for lead attorney Tom Mesereau. Attorney Culpepper said he and Mesereau received an information fact sheet on the Biggie and Tupac murder cases from journalist Michael Douglas Carlin. Included in the package was a letter written by Carlin to Los Angeles Police Chief Charlie Beck. Culpepper stated he and attorney Mesereau were visiting their client, Knight, at the Los Angeles County Jail facility. Mesereau read the Tupac and Biggie murder fact sheet and letter to him. Upon reading the documents, Knight's reaction was that of surprise. He was impressed on how accurate the information was. Knight stated, "How did these 2 guys put this together?" He also stated that the information was just read to him was known for many years that Reggie Wright Jr. and his ex-wife Sharita were behind the murder of Tupac and attempted murder of Knight. Knight also has details of Wright's involvement in the Biggie Smalls murder case. Culpepper went on to say that they believed the LAPD leak by LAPD robbery homicide detective Darren Dupree and former robbery homicide detective Greg Kading regarding the named suspect information on the internet resulted in the attempted murder of Knight in August of 2014. Culpepper stated that Knight is ready to give a statement on the 2 murder cases. However, the Los Angeles County Sheriff is in control of who visits their client. He said they need a court order to make that happen. Attorney Mesereau and Culpepper want to meet with Poole and Carlin at a later date and make arrangements to interview their client, Suge Knight. So this was sent to me on July 21st of 2015 at 1:19 p.m., and it was forwarded from Staples Copy Center 1324 on July 21st, 2015 at 1:15 p.m. And you can see the email string with this in it, and you can see that this is not signed. Now, there is a copy of this statement floating around that has Russell Poole's signature on it. I did not put that signature on it, and Russell Poole did not put that signature on it. It was, to me, this is evidence, and anybody who alters evidence is making a huge mistake in trying to push a narrative. And we don't push narratives. We simply look at facts. We're interested in the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And that's why when you read Chaos Merchants, every fact is notated as to where it comes from, so that if we ever have to question a fact, we know where to find it. We know where to go to look it up again and to see where that fact came from and see if it conflicts with another fact that we believe to be true in the case, and then we have to sort that out. So Russell was adamant that every fact be footnoted. He was also adamant that no fact ever be changed. And one of the people that we were working with tried to actually change the date on a fact. And Russell Poole went nuts, and that's what caused us not to want to work with that person again. And anyway, upshot with all of this, I want you guys to understand exactly what happened, the series of events. I had sent that letter off to Suge Knight's attorneys. I knew Tom Mesereau from Century City because he is prominent in Century City. He had represented Bill Cosby, he had represented Robert Blake, he'd represented a number of high-profile clients, and he had come to speak at Bar Association events, and so I kind of knew him socially. And anyway, sent the letter off. They read it. Thaddeus Culpepper called me. I had my own conversation with Thaddeus Culpepper, and then I instructed Russell. I said, Thaddeus, Russell Poole is going to call you next. And he called and had his own conversation, and our conversations were substantially similar. I did not write an affidavit, but Russell wrote the affidavit because we wanted to document it, and it was more important to get Russell's opinion on what had just happened. Now, I'm going to show you right here the Jeff Weiss article so you can see the state of mind that Russell had at the time that he passed away. And then, subsequent to all of this, I tried to get Suge Knight an attorney because Russell had wanted to apologize to Suge Knight because Russell had called Suge Knight the murderer of Tupac as well as the murderer of Biggie. And Russell came to understand that there was a difference between Death Row Records and Suge Knight, and that Death Row Records was behind the murder of Tupac and the attempted murder of Suge Knight, as well as the murder of Biggie, because all the facts were pointing to people at death row. So I'm going to let you hear what I sent to Don Sikorsky at the dossier. Now, these are not the complete interviews, and at the time I was in Wisconsin in 2018, and I had driven George Papadopoulos to prison. And that's when I had this conversation, and there were actually two conversations with Suge Knight. So I'm going to play these for you the way that I sent them to the dossier first. And there's more details that are, in these conversations with Suge, and I think at a later date maybe we'll revisit this. But I wanted you guys to understand the context of what was happening with Russell, and if you guys get a chance, clearly you can see what this telephonic statement is, and you can read it for yourself. But I just read it to you, and more later. Thank you.
Accept this call. Say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
What's happening?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good. I finally get to talk to you.
Yeah, I know. for 4 years, because it's Detective Biddle, no outgoing mail, no incoming mail, no phone, no visits. And if I want to hire an attorney, they got to get approved by a judge, county council for the sheriffs, and the DA.
Man, I've been following with great interest. Russell Poole wanted to apologize to you.
Yeah, I heard that. I mean, he's a good guy. I never lied to him or nobody because, all that stuff, they know who was going on behind all that stuff,
Yeah. Well, he couldn't, in his mind, separate you from Death Row Records. And as we were doing the investigation, I said, you have to understand, Russell, that, Mr. Knight was, in the car next to Tupac. I mean, that's not... And then with the Biggie thing, Mr. Knight was in jail. And I met somebody who was in jail with you at the time, and he said it's impossible that he was on a cell phone back then. Impossible.
It's definitely impossible. I mean, the one thing, too, with Tupac, I still got a 45 bullet inched in my skull. And the thing about it is, they've been knowing all this type of stuff from day one. And that's why they violated me and sent me to prison last time. And the other thing is, for Biggie's son, I'm quite sure if they saw the first one, they would saw the second one, because it's the same circle of people,
It is the same circle. I mean,
Yeah.
I got tapped on the shoulder by one of the cop's daughters that was involved, and she told me. I mean, this isn't conjecture anymore. We know the facts.
Yeah, it's the same people, same circle of people.
Yeah.
Have nothing to do with me,
No. I'm in.
I'm writing a little bit, though,
I'm in Wisconsin.
They found a blood clot in my leg,
Oh, that's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, so they Wednesday before Thanksgiving, all my legs and stuff swollen up. So when they sent me to the outside doctor, they checked out a blood clot in my leg, but they said it's real serious because they can move up faster and your leg can kill you. So
yeah,
they got me taking 2 shots of blood thinner and a pill at night. And then in Sister County Jail, I was taller than the bunk and I was wider than the bunk for 2904 for almost 2 years or something. So I used to have to sleep balled up. So it messed my discs up a little bit in my back. So I got to fix that, nerve or something. County Jail will tell you, yeah, but they put you in the wrong place,
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I'm in Wisconsin right now.
How you doing over there?
I'm doing good. I'm in Wisconsin. I drove George.
Oh, good.
I drove George Papadopoulos to prison.
What happened?
I drove George Papadopoulos, the Trump guy. I drove him to prison.
Oh, he'll be all right. He got good company on the way to prison,
Yeah, exactly. And
you're a good guy, man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That'd be real good because people need to actually know, because a lot of people is blind to situations in prison. And then some people get treated 1,000% worse in prison, so that should be accounted for too,
Well, I told him before he went in, I said, George, I really want you to talk to the inmates there and ask them how should the prison system be reformed?
Right.
Because, what an opportunity for him to go in. It's only 14 days, but still, a lot of smart people there. And he needs to ask them.
And if you have any problems, you can use my name.
Exactly. I told him when he gets out, I said, you know what? I want you to talk to somebody. And he said he'd love to talk to you. So we'll make that happen.
If he's a friend of yours, he's a friend of mine.
Exactly.
A lot of this stuff is just basically the public is naive to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of things in dealing with incarceration, even business, is a lot of politics. I mean, it's like I never should have went to prison the first time I went to prison, but I had caught the accounting firm who Jimmy introduced us to. They stole like about $30-40 million,
Wow.
And they was giving them. See, my thing with my accounts was I signed all my checks. So any check was over $5,000, I definitely had to sign it. And they was giving David $100,000 a month, and David said he was giving Jimmy a kickback from $100,000 a month. So we was paying him for all the work he did as an attorney, and they was giving him $100,000 a month.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
So that played an effect on my me getting a violation when I shouldn't have got a violation.
Well, that whole Orlando Anderson thing, man, I mean, it was really bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, even when he came in, they put him on stand, and the judge asked me, said, do you know Suge Knight? I said, you don't know Suge Knight. I said, what did he do? The only thing he did was help me and save my life, which I basically did because, you know, Pac was my little brother and the #1 artist out on the bond, and if he would have got in trouble, he was going back to prison.
Yeah.
So I knew it was cameras everywhere in Vegas because I went to UNLV. They just take us to the top and let us watch. So, you know, I was breaking up saying, cut that bullshit out right in here. But at the same time, they just played with the thing the way they wanted to play with it. And see, the thing is, those guys, if you go back and watch the film, they was already stalking Pac, like watching him. So that just tipped the iceberg when something happened. But there was a plan already to do something to him.
Yeah.
And that's why, like I said, I had two of the toughest guys for him, and Reggie pulled them off of me. It didn't have to happen. I told him to send 5 guys from the club to there, and they never sent nobody.
Yeah.
And Frank blocked us in purposely. Later, he told us at the streets. They told him to do it. You know.
Yeah.
His constant. Hey, Frank got so bad he died. You know.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. And Michael Moore.
Yeah. And then Perez and them was all involved. They were trying to kill me too, but see, because Perez and Reg was good friends, and Perez and Sarita and Reg is great friends, and so all those three together was trying to plot. You know?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Russell got it right before he died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
And you know, and the sad thing about it, Orlando wasn't even the shooter. You know.
No, exactly. No.
And it's said that, but it's not at all. He was actually a good kid too, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've heard from Compton.
My judge said he watched the tape 97 times and still couldn't say I did anything. Yeah. He asked him, could he just give me less time, like 1 year, or back on probation? And the lawyers never said, yeah. They all kept saying no, but that's not true. He could have.
Yeah.
And I got the paperwork to prove from 2 different DAs and all attorneys. I never had a firearm when I went on probation for it. I mean, when you come see me, we need to really sit down because I got other people involved and stuff. But you should really be involved with the movies and the documentary stuff because it's not just because a lot of part of the history need to be shown, need to be said because it can help people in the future. You know.
Well, the truth is actually the best story that's ever been told in a film, I believe.
Oh, always. Yeah, always, definitely. That's why I'm saying that's why it's so important to get these things out, and you're the right person to do it because the truth doesn't just stop with one person. No. The truth put the law down, the facts down that it don't keep happening again.
Well, think about it. You got drugs, you got guns, you got jealousy, you got music, you got, I mean, it's just such a rich story.
Yeah.
I mean, all kinds of really cool things in this story.
Really, yeah. Wisconsin, that's a great football state right there.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And, Green Bay.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, you're talking about the Packers.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
the college, those guys eat, breathe, sleep football.
Well, and, it's such a small town that has a football team, and those are the biggest fans that ever lived in any sport.
What you think the Raiders going to do in Vegas as a football team?
I think that's such a great move for Major League Football. I mean, for NFL.
It's a great move. I think hopefully I can be finishing up my time soon because I would love to be there to consult those guys because they need somebody to consult them because there's a lot of opportunities that go the wrong way. You got to watch what clubs you go to, what strip clubs you go to.
Yeah.
Watch out for the hookers. Watch out for the slick stuff. You got to turn it to a real occupation job as an athlete and a family place,
Yeah, exactly.
Because the most important thing about going there, they got to win. And if guys is out past curfew and hanging out too late or getting in trouble, you can't win,
Yeah, Yeah. They need you. You need to be out, man. Your family needs you too.
Did you hear about the thing? Yeah, my family really needs me because I take care of my whole family. My kids are great.
Yeah.
I'm blessed to have great kids.
Yeah. Russell never liked Biddle.
I mean, huh?
Russell Poole never liked Biddle. He told me he didn't trust him.
This is the thing. When I got shot, it was 37 cameras in one Oak.
Yeah.
Biddle was a detective on that case. He said, well, one day I'm going to cross you. So when the thing happened in Compton, how you a detective on that case also?
Yeah. Big conflict of interest. Russell was going to the sheriff's to talk about the conflict of interest when he passed away.
Yeah. He was a good guy.
He was a good guy.
And then Sheriff Ball handed the shooter the gun, and the next day he took him to the airport. They called him in and said, well, did you take him to the airport? First he said no. Then they showed him what he did. The only thing they did was fire him, but they never said nothing about it, you know?
Yeah. Well, they didn't even fire him right away. They fired him a year later.
Yeah, which just makes no sense because all these things is, No, I got one. So all this stuff's come down to them, it's just BS.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a good guy. You just got involved in some bullshit.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
Well, and it's been going on.
Where all this stuff really comes from, it's come from because they want the ownership of my company. That's all that really happened.
Yeah.
Every last person.
It goes all back to 1996.
Right.
Murder is pretty simple. The first person you go after is the spouse.
All the artists at Death Row was willing to come with me.
David Mack worked for you, right?
No, ma'am.
Never?
Never met him. Never heard of him. Didn't know who he was until the accusations that he possibly did work for me. And that's been investigated by LAPD and all of that.
3 different jailhouse informants who offered to wear a wire were all turned down by LAPD. A wire, say informants, that could have caught jailed Officer Perez boasting about his involvement with Death Row Records and the Biggie Smalls murder.
Why would I want a paper trail when I never brought him around nowhere? So if I'm going to hide him in secret, you think I'm gonna let somebody catch a paper trail? They were paid cash by Snoop.
Perez is a good friend of David Mack's, who both were good friends of Gaines.
Perez and them was all involved. They were trying to kill me too, but see, because Perez and Reg was good friends, and Perez and Sharita and Reg is great friends, and so all those 3 together was trying to plot.
While we were at the scene, we received a clue that Gaines had a girlfriend that lived in Hollywood Hills. And when we got there, it turned out that his girlfriend was Sharitha Knight, who was the estranged wife of the owner of Death Row Records.
How about Rafael Perez?
Never heard of him until all the incidents happened.
Those guys, if you go back and watch the film, they was already stalking Pac, watching him. So that just tipped the iceberg when something happened. But there was a plan already to do something to him.
So why does everyone keep telling me that David Mack was working for you?
Yeah. I never heard that.
You've never heard that?
That he worked for me.
You've never heard that?
Wait a minute. Let me clear that up. I'm saying by anyone that's credible that will work around there or anything. Like I said, that was all investigated by LAPD. I turned over my payroll, everything.
3 different jailhouse informants who offered to wear a wire were all turned down by LAPD. A wire, say informants, that could have caught jailed Officer Perez boasting about his involvement with Death Row Records and the Biggie Smalls murder.
You always say, those are Reggie people.
Orlando wasn't even the shooter, He was actually a good kid, too, I'm quite sure if they saw the first one, they saw the second one, because it's the same circle of people.
On the criminal side, he's acknowledged that 57 cases involving 99 suspects are tainted either by perjured testimony, falsification of evidence, or probable cause.
A lying police officer goes to the very heart, to the core of the criminal justice system. 99% of your cases, maybe that's an exaggeration, 90% at least, of your cases rely on the veracity of your police officer. If you cannot trust your police officer, you don't have a case. You don't have a criminal justice system.
You got a lot to cover up, y'all.
Freudian slip.
You got a lot to cover up.
It's the same people, same circle of people. It have nothing to do with me, you know?